This is the Extra Point Podcast from Arizona's family.
All right, things are changing by the minute. Things are changing by the second. The death of the Pac-12. Where will ASU land? I think our next guest has a pretty good answer to that. The great Chris Karpman of Sundevil Source has been all over this story. Joins us. Feel free, by the way, to just kind of like type away if you have like an article to write while we're talking here. But what's this day been like? What's the latest for you with where ASU is going to end up?
Listen, Mark, I've learned that I have to multitask, but I don't think I can definitely do that. Things have been fast and furious, as you said there, really since the Pac-12 meeting that happened, where the presidents sort of learned that the media rights opportunities were not nearly as good as they had hoped relative to the Big 12. And so with that information, Michael Crow, ASU's president, who has been really steadfast in his support of the Pac-12 going back to Larry Scott and wanting to stay in the conference due to academic reputational reasons, has finally started to move off of that anchor. And now, because Colorado departed, Arizona is very interested in leaving for the Big 12. The talk that's out there of Stanford, Cal, Washington, Oregon, perhaps being targets by the Big Ten, there's a clear understanding that there's not going to be much left, if anything, that would be worth staying in the conference. And so things have really accelerated in the last day or so. And I think that we're going to see Big 12 have a meeting on Thursday during the day to gauge where its members are at in terms of adding ASU in Arizona, potentially even Utah. And then the A board meeting on Thursday, which will follow up on that. And the conversation will be about ASU and Arizona departing. And then we could see as soon as Friday a public vote by the Big 12 members, which would make it official. And I think that is, unless something happens that derails this, where we're going.
This is absolutely stunning. I mean, stunning on so many levels, stunning that the Pac-12 has fallen apart so quickly. There's also the excitement of the new league and ASU and U of A staying together. But just looking at the Pac-12 here and just seeing how this thing fell apart, how did it come unwound so quickly, in your opinion?
Well, I think everybody has followed the last year where there's been public reporting that the numbers would come out and they would be good and it was going to happen by this date, and then that got kicked down the can and moved. And then you have George Kliavkoff boasting 2 Pac-12 media days in a row that the Pac-12 was in great shape, and said, at this most recent one a couple of weeks ago that the numbers are getting better the longer that they wait. And it was a lot of bluster, and there was nothing that demonstrated that that was going to be proven to be the case. And really the Big 12 has stepped in front of the Pac-12 at every opportunity. They cut in the line on the media rights deal, which was a very savvy move that was made by Brett Yormark. And there's been an analysis paralysis thing that's happened where the Michael Crow, ASU's president, and then others of his ilk in the conference, the chancellors and presidents who have wanted to remain in the conference for all of their non-sport sort of reasoning, thought they would be able to hold the conference together. But these are the same people that announced that they were shocked when USC and UCLA departed the conference. And then they weren't able to sort of read the poker table to understand where Colorado was at, what kind of hand it was holding, what it was going to do, and Arizona and its its interests. And so there's not going to be anything left. And this realization has sort of rapidly come across, I think, to ASU's leadership. And Ray Anderson, I believe, already kind of knew. What I've heard is that Ray Anderson has evolved over a much longer period and come to sort of believe that this was probably going to happen, and the reasoning for it and all that stuff at a much earlier juncture than Michael Crow. But he works for Crow, and Crow's academic ideals come before any sort of athletics considerations up to and until that can't be the case anymore. And so that's the reason, Mark, why I think this has happened so quickly.
So it seemed like Arizona, we had it confirmed from a source that Arizona had a standing invitation to join the Big 12. How big of a deal is it, and how do you think they got it done, that they were able, it looks like they're going to be able to take Arizona State with them? Or how do you think that all came together?
Yeah, I think Big 12 has been very aggressive in its strategies. And a great example of that is that Colorado felt enough pressure to move within a week of the Pac-12 media rights meeting that Kliavkoff had, that they didn't even wait for that to happen. In Arizona, I think a lot of the reporting that's been out about Arizona has been to try to influence ASU and other sort of perception around the situation. So Arizona always wanted to move with ASU, is what I've understood to be the case. But Crow was so hesitant and sort of unwilling to do that unless things deteriorated to the degree that it sort of needed to within the remaining pack to then accelerate that movement. And so Arizona, there was a lot of posturing, like, by people who were putting out the Big 12 narrative that they might stick with 14 teams. And I never really believed that. That was, but I think a smart ploy to get Colorado to move, and then, to put pressure on the Arizona ASU situation. So, but all of these things, I think what have led to Robbins, Arizona's president, being able to tell Crow, look, this is kind of what I was saying all along. Pac-12 numbers weren't going to come through on media rights, going to be making a lot less money. The conference is already going to dissolve anyways, because eventually the Big Ten is going to take these other teams, at a minimum, Washington and Oregon, which are remaining properties. Can't really expand the way that you want to when San Diego State and other teams have to pay these enormous amounts of money to exit their own conferences. So what really is the alternative option? And I believe that Crow was hoping that Kliavkoff would be able to pull a rabbit out of the hat that would make the numbers close enough to the Big 12 that even if it wasn't as good, you could sell the idea that with college football playoff expanding and the ability to get automatic bids to that with the top 6 conferences in the standings, that was enough to sort of overcome some of these other challenges that they were going to have. But that appears to really no longer be the case. And I also think that the SEC, the Big Ten, they're going to continue to leverage their power as much as they can, which they've done to this point, to try to make sure that they get as many of their teams into the playoff as possible. And that could also hurt whatever would have been left, I should say, of the pack whatever.
So as you look at this Big 12 or Big 16 or wherever it lands, I guess it would be 16 teams. Is this a power league? Is this the stability that Arizona and Arizona State are looking for?
Well, certainly it's nowhere approaching the power conferences, which is really a power duo of the Big Ten and the SEC now. We're talking about a financial disparity that's going to be $40 million or something like that per year, $35 to $40 million per year distribution per school. Can't really compete with that when you have an operating budget that is in the 120 million range or something like that. So they're not going to be able to compete with that, but at least it's a stable, and it is a operating standpoint that you can put a successful product on the field within the conference itself. That's kind of the most important thing. I mean, we already knew that ASU wasn't really in the picture for a CFP berth in 4 teams. And even if it had gotten there, it wasn't going to be able to be Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, et cetera, Michigan, whatever. And so that probably won't change. Hate to say it for ASU fans, but it does continue to increase the overall sort of ability to operate a successful athletic department and provide more enjoyment and success with the caliber of that product, such that there can be conversations about ASU, Arizona, and other teams getting into whatever the college football playoff looks like some years at a minimum.
All right, so you're trading in a trip to Pullman for a trip to Lubbock, Texas. Any other spots in the Big 12 that you're kind of circling on the calendar here as we approach maybe this happen in the next couple days?
Mark, I'm a big barbecue person, right?
Yes, I've seen you at Little Miss Barbecue. We need to get that sponsored, by the way.
That would be great. We need to do a show there or something like that. But so when you add Texas and Oklahoma into the mix, right, that you're going to those states on a regular basis, that unlocks a lot of options from a food standpoint. And it's not just going to games in a stadium or whatever. I mean, that's great, but that's only part of the entire experience for a person like me. But I do think that there's a obvious passion that exists in that part of the country that is palpable in college football. And it's going to be fun to experience those things if this move does happen, because going to Cal or Stanford or some of these other teams when they're not as good, you don't get that same sort of a vibe or energy and game experience. And so, and basketball, of course, Big 12 is a phenomenal basketball conference. And so that will be also quite fun to be able to experience some of those things.
All right. So you think with this Regents meeting that just popped up for tomorrow, would you be surprised if it doesn't happen before Friday, or do you think that as college decision makers do, this might drag out a little bit?
No, I think we're probably on a fast track here. They just had a board meeting. You're not scheduling another special meeting unless it's about this. I have heard that it is about ASU and Arizona. The only thing that really could monkey wrench this, shouldn't say the only thing, but the main thing that could monkey wrench this would be Big 12 presidents deciding that they want to move a little bit slower on expansion. Maybe they don't want to go to 16 right now. But I don't think that's the case. There's several reasons. There is that threat of additional expansion by the Big Ten, by the SEC. This right now is a very ripe opportunity. I'm sure Mac's going to sell that to the members. And I do believe that as long as that goes well and Crow is on board, which he now, by all indications, appears to have moved in that direction very strongly in the last day or so, that there could be a public vote by the Big 12 Friday that makes this official.
And do you think this gives the team on the field a lift? Are we going to notice something over there in practice that maybe a turning of the page or just like some closure here, knowing where they're going to go?
Probably not. But I do think that being more competitive in budgets, revenues, it's a boost to a fan base, and the ASU fans and a lot of Pac-12 fans have been very down about the conference and their perception of leadership, and they've even felt like there was cultural things that the leaders didn't get, and I think those things will move to the past in the rear view window in a way that maybe then encourages more NIL contributions, or people wanting to take part in things that help boost the profile of a place like ASU. When they start to feel like, okay, things are moving in a direction where they're taking football seriously. These things matter at least somewhat to them. So I think that could shake some additional money loose, And that is something that players would love to benefit from. I don't think that they're necessarily getting geeked up on August 3rd or whatever for whether or not the following year they're going to be playing at Oregon State or Washington State or at Oklahoma State, as an example. But I do think that in the grand scheme of things, the emotional state of the fan base at ASU and other Pac-12 schools really needs to improve. And this is something that can help in that direction.
Oh, for sure. I know there's a lot of articles to get to on Sundevil Source, but as far as just the team goes on the field, give us a little tease when we go to the website right now. What can we read about how the Sun Devils look here before you go back to writing another article or two on this very busy evening?
Well, there's a quarterback competition. Everybody's probably aware of that. Trenton Bourget versus Drew Pine, with a little sprinkling of Jaden Rashada, and we'll see what happens. I think he's got a very bright future, but we're tracking the performance of these quarterbacks every single day, all of their throws, the results, how they look. There's 51 scholarship newcomers on the roster, which is 20 more than any year in history. So there's so much that is new and different about ASU right now that takes some kind of wrapping your arms around to really get a full handle on. And I'm trying with our staff to just do that on a daily basis and provide a lot of this information to fans so that they can understand what can maybe be expected by the team this year. And I do believe, I've never said this before, Mark, but I really do believe that ASU could be one of the bigger sleepers, if not the biggest sleeper in the conference this year, because the NCAA rule suspension that only had allowed 25 new scholarship players in any given year previously has been suspended. And that is the way by which Dillingham has added 30 Division I transfers, which is unheard of. The previous record was 14. So the roster is way better, much quicker than a typical rebuild. And that has the ability to lead to a much better season when coupled with 8 home games, I should say. Very sort of enthused team, and just an overall sort of attitude that I think exists that is permeating around the program. And we're just trying to report on that every single day.
Well, it's great stuff, and wouldn't that be something if ASU was able to kind of shake up the world and have a great year? And that kind of always seems to happen in Valley sports. So we'll look forward to that. I was hoping to keep you long enough so your phone would ring like Adam Schefter style, and you'd be like, I got to go. I got a hot tip. But we are just hanging on your every tweet here, and really appreciate the work you do. It's a wild time. I hope you're enjoying it.
Thanks, Mark. It's actually had at least 2 or 3 rings in my pocket, so I'm going to go check that out right now.
The Extra Point Podcast is a production of 3TV, CBS 5, and azfamily.com in Phoenix, Arizona.